They say loyalty earns you respect, that if you give a company everything, your time, your grit, your weekends and wins, you'll be valued, protected. But they never tell you what happens when the company changes, and the only thing your loyalty earns you is a target on your back. My name's Daniel Mercer. I'm 47 years old, and until 2 weeks ago, I was the Senior Vice President of Sales at a firm called Halston Ridge Solutions. If you work in enterprise logistics, you've probably heard of us. We didn't just survive the 2008 crash, we grew, and I was there for all of it. 15 years. I wasn't just managing the sales division, I built it. I hired our top reps. I landed our first international contract. When the founder retired, he shook my hand and said, "You're the spine of this company, Dan." I believed him, right up until the acquisition. It happened fast. Some venture group out of San Francisco swept in, promised innovation, agility, global alignment, the usual buzzwords. At first, I kept my head down. I've been through transitions before. You nod, you adapt, you wait out the chaos. But this time was different. 2 weeks in, they introduced her, Camille Brooks. New title, Global Director of Sales Strategy. Polished, sharp, with a permanent air of being slightly unimpressed. Late 30s, MBA from somewhere trendy, and a resume full of transformational initiatives. She shook my hand like she was already planning to replace me. The first leadership meeting under her was held in the glass conference room overlooking the downtown skyline. I remember because the light hit just right, bouncing off the metal Halston Ridge logo mounted on the wall, a logo I fought to keep during rebranding talks a few years back. Camille stood at the head of the table, flanked by consultants in matching suits. No greeting, no warm-up, just a hard pivot into a slideshow titled Modernizing Compensation Structures. She spoke in clipped, rehearsed phrases. To stay competitive in an evolving market, dynamic commission alignment, equitable distribution of base and incentive. Then came the bomb. Effective immediately, all sales leadership would receive a 40% cut to base salaries. New commission tiers would be introduced, tiers that, I knew instantly, were designed like mazes, fancy in theory, impossible in practice. I raised a hand. So, just to clarify, after 15 years, my reward is a 40% haircut? Is experience a liability now? She didn't even blink, just smiled, tight like a blade, and said, "You're part of the old guard, Dan. We appreciate what you built, but now we need to evolve." The room went still. A few younger managers shifted uncomfortably. Others kept their heads down, typing fake notes on laptops. No one spoke. I left the meeting without another word. What was the point? She'd drawn the line, and it was clear where I stood. Later that afternoon, one of my junior managers, Jonah, stopped by my office. Bright kid. I'd mentored him for years. He closed the door and leaned in like he was breaking a vow of silence. "Just so you know, Camille's been quietly reassigning legacy accounts. I overheard her planning a full client realignment. She's moving your book to her people." I stared at him. "She's cutting me off at the knees." He didn't respond. He didn't need to. I spent the next hour combing through my client dashboards. Nothing looked off, yet. But that night, after I'd gone home and poured a drink I didn't enjoy, I logged into our internal system from my laptop. The update was waiting. My client portfolio had been restructured. That was the word they used. Restructured, neatly, surgically. 15 years of relationships, gone, transferred to other names on the org chart. No warning, no conversation. Just a digital memo and a spreadsheet. At the bottom of the email was a note from Camille. "This isn't personal, it's progress." I read it twice, then a third time, and I sat there, alone in my living room, the glow of the screen flickering in my eyes, thinking one thing. She has no idea what she just started. By the time I walked into the Waldom Hotel's conference center, I already knew Camille would try to box me out. It was the National Enterprise Logistics Summit, 3 days of panels, overpriced lanyards, and $7 coffee. But for me, it all came down to one meeting, the Kincaid account. Kincaid International had been with us for a decade. I'd landed them back when they were just breaking into the North American market. We weathered tariff changes, port slowdowns, 2 CEOs, and a pandemic together. They weren't just clients, they were partners, friends even. which is why it didn't surprise me when Camille announced a week prior that she would be leading the pitch. "You're welcome to support, of course," she added, with a polite smile that felt more like a pat on the head. Support. That was the new word for stay quiet. I nodded like I accepted it, but I went back to my home office that night and worked through the slides on my own. Not hers, mine. I rewrote everything, scrapped the jargon, built a narrative that spoke directly to what Kincaid cared about: container efficiency, route redundancy, custom streamlining. Things Camille didn't even know were pain points because she hadn't been in the trenches with them. I had. The morning of the pitch, I sat 2 rows behind the podium as Camille walked onto the stage in a navy pantsuit and a rehearsed smile. Her slides lit up behind her, branded, buzzwordy, full of acronyms and theoretical gains. She paced with confidence, dropping phrases like synergistic vertical pivoting and automated decisioning frameworks. One of the Kincaid reps glanced at me, then down at his notes. Another, Raj, who'd been my point of contact for years, folded his arms. Camille was halfway through a section on predictive redundancy mapping when Raj held up a hand. "Can I ask, specifically, how this model would impact our westbound routes in Q4, assuming another Panama delay?" Camille paused. She blinked, clearly trying to recall which ocean was west of what. "Well, with our new integrated AI capabilities, we anticipate the platform will self-adjust to dynamic challenges." Raj tilted his head. "But how?" Camille opened her mouth again, but I was already standing. I wasn't supposed to, but I did. "We analyzed your westbound volume last quarter," I said, walking slowly toward the front. "If delays extend past 12 days, your rerouting cost surges by 19%, especially on perishables. The proposed solution? Shift 2% of volume preemptively to Gulf ports using bonded carriers. We modeled it out last month." I could feel Camille's glare burning into my back, but I wasn't looking at her. I was watching Raj smile. Camille wrapped up the presentation 10 minutes later. Her voice never cracked, but her pace quickened. She skipped 2 slides, no one clapped. Afterward, the Kincaid team invited us to the lounge for coffee. Camille declined, citing a strategic follow-up meeting. I went. Raj waited until we were out of earshot before he leaned in. "She's selling a system. You sold a solution. We can tell the difference." I nodded. "She's polished. I'll give her that." He smirked. "You're the reason we stuck with Halston this long. Don't forget that." The compliment felt good, better than it should have, because I knew what it meant. The moment I stepped out of that hotel, my days were numbered. I'd embarrassed her. And people like Camille don't take embarrassment lightly. Sure enough, she cornered me in the hallway back at the conference center. Her jaw was tight, hands folded like she was delivering a funeral notice. "Don't ever override me again," she said, low and even. I met her eyes. "You can take my title, Camille. You already have. But you can't fake credibility. That's earned." She didn't respond, just turned and walked away. That should have been the end of it. But later that night, as I sat at the edge of the hotel bar nursing a scotch I didn't need, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered anyway. "Dan Mercer," the voice said, familiar and sly. "Heard about the acquisition. How's the modern era treating you?" I laughed under my breath. "Who's this?" "Someone who still remembers the favor you pulled in 19. When you helped me close that Port of Savannah deal. I never forgot that. So, I'll ask again. You still in?" I looked out at the lights of the city blinking beyond the glass, the hum of ambition rising all around me, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something steady in my chest. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe it was just the setup. I didn't slam any doors, no dramatic walkouts, no yelling in the boardroom or flipping over desks. That kind of exit makes headlines, sure, but it also burns bridges. And I wasn't here to scorch the earth. I was here to plant something else. It was late. The house was quiet. My wife was asleep. The dogs curled at the foot of the bed. I sat in my home office, the glow of the screen soft against the dark window. My resignation letter was already drafted. 3 paragraphs. Professional, clean, no emotion, just facts. But before I hit send, I read through my contract again, specifically the non-compete clause. It was dense, full of legal fog, but it wasn't airtight. I'd had it reviewed years ago, just in case. It restricted me from pursuing clients I worked with while at Halston Ridge. But not prospects, not suppliers, not companies I'd been connected to outside of formal sales relationships. There were gaps, enough room to move if I was careful. So I made some calls. Nothing aggressive, nothing actionable, just conversations. I checked in with old contacts, vendors, partners, people who owed me favors or still remembered my name with respect. We didn't talk business directly, but we talked. One supplier told me, "Camille's pushing for preferred rates across the board, wants bigger volume discounts without commitments, doesn't understand that relationships matter more than margins." Another said, "Half your old team's looking," quietly but seriously. "The new pay structure's killing morale." I nodded, even though they couldn't see me. I'd suspected it. Camille had redesigned the comp system to reward churn, not trust. Fast deals, short-term wins, lots of flash. But you can't scale reputation that way. You can't keep seasoned reps chasing paper-thin commissions while promising them future bonuses based on tiered growth alignment. That kind of jargon collapses under pressure. One of my former reps, Megan, messaged me late one night. She said, "I don't know how much longer I can do this. She treats everyone like pawns. We lost 2 renewals this week, and she blamed onboarding. It was her proposal that broke it." I didn't respond right away. I just stared at the screen. I knew then I wasn't crazy. I hadn't become obsolete. I'd just outlived a structure that was never meant to reward consistency. 2 days later, I walked into HR with my resignation printed and signed. The coordinator blinked when I handed it over. "Oh, I didn't realize you were planning to leave." I smiled politely. "You weren't supposed to." She gave me a pre-written checklist and asked for my badge. No exit interview scheduled, no thank you note from leadership. Camille didn't even acknowledge it. After 15 years, my departure took 7 minutes. I returned to my office and packed 1 box, just the essentials. A photo of my wife and I in Rome, the leather notepad I used for every major pitch. A book I never finished reading. I didn't look around for nostalgia's sake. There wasn't any left. I walked the halls one last time, not out of sentiment, but out of instinct. It was like muscle memory. I passed the bullpen where I used to coach rookies, the break room where I closed my first $1 million quarter, the old glass conference room where I shook hands with clients who trusted me with their futures. No one stopped me, no one noticed. Back at my desk, I opened my inbox and typed one last message to the team. Subject, thank you. Some of us weren't built for the new system. That's fine. I'll just build something better. If you need me, you know where to find me. Dan. I hit send, logged out, and walked away. No parade, no party, just peace. It took 2 weeks before I heard her name again. I was having lunch at a small cafe downtown, catching up with a former client. Nothing formal, just reconnecting. We were halfway through our meal when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, chuckled, and flipped it over. "Funny timing," he said. "Camille's team just sent over a revised proposal for the national logistics bid. Said they're finalizing today." I raised an eyebrow. "I thought you were already locked in with them." He grinned. "We were, but then someone mentioned your name in the room, made us pause." I sipped my coffee. "My name?" He nodded. "Word is you're starting something. Might be small now, but we remember who actually showed up for us." I didn't say anything, just smiled and leaned back in my chair. Camille thought she'd closed the deal, but she forgot one thing. Legacy doesn't vanish when you take a name off the door. It echoes. The first thing I bought wasn't a fancy desk or a sign for the door. It was a whiteboard, plain, magnetic, just big enough to map ideas that still made sense outside of corporate spin. That, and a coffee machine. If I was going to build something new, I needed 2 things: clarity and caffeine. I leased a corner in a shared workspace downtown. Industrial floors, exposed beams, overpriced parking, perfect. No receptionist, no middle layers, no waiting on budget approvals. Just a laptop, a vision, and a list of names I hadn't called in years. I named the firm Mercer and West. No partners yet. West was just a placeholder, but someday I'd fill it. Someone with hustle, backbone, and no patience for bureaucratic theater. The consultancy was built around one niche: client transition and retention strategy for legacy accounts. Not sexy, but necessary. Companies overhaul systems all the time and forget that relationships don't migrate as smoothly as CRMs. Loyalty has no export feature. That was my angle. And in a post-acquisition market, there was demand. I launched the site with a single-page offer. No clutter, no About Us section loaded with jargon. Just one message. When you've been with a client for a decade, you don't need to win them again. You need to keep them from walking away. 2 weeks in, my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't seen since 2019, Port West Shipping. I'd saved their supply chain after a customs freeze in Singapore. Their COO, Trent, was blunt as ever. "Heard you're out. Finally," I laughed. "That obvious?" Camille's team sent over a proposal last week, polished but hollow. Lots of buzzwords, no substance. We want your take. By Friday, I had 2 more calls just like it. Legacy clients who'd smiled through Camille's presentations, but quietly remembered who picked up the phone when things went sideways at 3 a.m. I stayed lean, no fancy office, no corporate hierarchy, just results. I priced competitively, billed honestly, and spoke plainly. Word got around. Then it happened. One of Camille's prized accounts, Kirillus Tech, posted an RFP for consulting support. She assumed it was locked. I knew because one of the project leads reached out with a quiet email. "We're exploring alternatives. Her new structure doesn't reward loyalty. Yours feels personal." I didn't gloat. I just opened a new file and started sketching a custom plan, one that didn't treat their problems like generic obstacles. I wrote it the way I always had. Solution first, slide deck second. But I knew I couldn't do this alone. That's when I called Megan. She answered on the second ring. "Dan, you still fed up?" "Beyond. I've got a desk, a client, and a blank canvas. You in?" There wasn't even a pause. "I'll send my resignation tonight." I brought in Eli a week later. Smart, hungry, sharp edges that Camille had tried to sand down into submission. He'd been wasted under her micromanagement. Here, he'd run his own accounts. I trained them the way I wish someone had trained me. No fluff, no endless onboarding. Just field-tested strategy, straight talk, and autonomy. I told them, "You land a client, they're yours. You drop the ball, we all feel it. But I'll back you the way I wish I'd been backed." They ran with it. By the end of the quarter, we'd closed 4 deals, modest contracts by big firm standards, but high-retention, high-impact partnerships. Our clients didn't care about our size. They cared that we showed up, that we listened, that we remembered the details. One of them even said, "I never thought I'd miss the old Halston team. Turns out, I just missed the people who gave a damn." Then the article dropped. Cambridge Strategic suffers Q, 2 client losses, sources, site leadership misalignment, and legacy mismanagement. I saw the headline on LinkedIn first. Camille's firm. 3 high-value clients lost in 1 quarter, including Kirillus. The publication didn't name names, but I didn't need to read between the lines. I already knew. Inside sources blamed internal rigidity and a failure to recognize relationship equity. I called Megan into my office. She read the article silently, then looked up. "Think she knows it was us?" I smiled. "Doesn't matter. We didn't steal anything. We earned what they left behind." She nodded, half smirking. "Feels good." It did. But I wasn't here to bury Camille. I was here to outlive her. The skyline looked different from here, crisper, cleaner somehow. Morning light spilled across the hardwood floors of my new office, warming the space like it knew I'd earned every inch of it. No glass walls meant to impress venture capitalists. No sterile buzz of fluorescent fixtures or half-hearted motivational posters. Just quiet, clear air and a city stretched beneath me, moving fast but not faster than I could keep up with. I sat at my desk, coffee in one hand, contract in the other. The logo in the top left corner of the document caught my eye. Greenwich Global Logistics, a multinational account. The same one Camille once told me I was clinging to like a trophy from a game that ended 10 years ago. Today they signed with me. 6 months ago, I was packing a box and walking out of Halston Ridge without fanfare. Now, my inbox was flooded with more inbound leads than we could handle. I'd built something lean, focused, and resilient. Not just a company, a lane. One that didn't try to mimic the bloat and noise of big firms. One that delivered quietly and consistently. Greenwich wasn't the first high-profile client we'd won, but it meant something. A full-circle kind of deal. They told me they'd been unimpressed with the innovative solutions Camille's team pitched. All smoke, one executive said on our last call, no fire. We weren't flashy, we just worked. I set the contract down and leaned back, letting the steam from my mug warm my face. I wasn't chasing scale. I wasn't trying to dominate the industry or headline panels at trade shows. I just wanted to prove that you could build something honest, something human, and that people, real clients, would respond to that. My phone buzzed. A text from Jonah, one of my old colleagues who still worked at Halston Ridge. Thought you'd want to know? Camille got reassigned. Internal operations, no client-facing role, too many high-value accounts walked out the door. I stared at the screen for a long second, not in shock, not even satisfaction, just confirmation. There it was, the quiet balance. I didn't forward the message. I didn't tell Megan or Eli or post some cryptic update on LinkedIn. I just let the moment pass through me. It didn't need applause. Justice, when real, doesn't showboat. I took another sip of coffee, then turned my chair toward the wall of windows behind me. The streets pulsed below, trucks weaving through intersections, storefronts opening, early risers rushing off to build things of their own. I used to crave this view. Now, I just appreciated it. It didn't symbolize success. It represented perspective. My door creaked open with a soft knock. It was Eli, holding a folder, his brows pinched with something between concern and curiosity. Got a minute? Always, I said. That's something I swore I'd make space for. Being available. Not just for feedback, but for people. Camille used to keep her door closed unless she needed something. I wanted mine open, even when I didn't. He stepped in and handed me the folder. Client onboarding workflow. Megan had a few ideas and I built on them. Wanted your eyes on it before we finalize. I flipped through the pages, streamlined, thoughtful, accountable. You two crush this, I said, passing it back. Push it live. He hesitated. Seriously? I nodded. You've got good instincts. I trust them. Go with it. He smiled, wide and a little stunned. Thanks, Dan. After he left, I looked around again. No plaque with my name on the wall, no golden awards or stage group photos. Just a simple, well-used whiteboard and a team I believed in. That's what legacy looks like. Not the office you leave, but what you build after you leave it. The wind outside picked up, rustling the edges of a stack of proposals on my desk. I didn't rush to grab them. I let them shift, let them breathe. There would be time to respond, time to grow, time to take on the right clients, not all of them, just the ones who fit. I stood and walked to the window, sipping the last of my coffee. They called me part of the old guard, but I didn't rust. I rebuilt.